And we're here live. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
How's it going?
Good,
What's
good,
going on,
good.
Dante Randall? How are you guys?
Pretty
We
good. Pretty
have
good.
Randall Avery, one of the greatest financial minds in Georgia, joining us today. Appreciate you being on the show. Vince is making his return appearance, his first appearance in
Yeah, man. Happy
2026.
New Year to everybody. I know it's
Ah,
February, but I know you and Dante had one of those discussions. You and Randall had one of those discussions early on in the year. When do we stop saying Happy New Year? Well, it's the first time I've seen all three of you on at the same time. So Happy New Year, even though it's February.
He's on my
uh,
side, Dante. He's on my side.
I'm done saying that. It's over.
Yeah, because to Randall's point, hey, we're from the South. We always got to be nice, is what he said.
I love it. Today's conversation should feel like we're lifting the hood on the economic engine. We're really talking about driving down the road, and there's feels like there's two sides of the story. One side is just surging right along. I'll give an example. I was talking to a client of mine on it was on Friday, and he was looking about real estate investing here and there. What should he do? And he was talking about his portfolio, his stock portfolio. And he has a 401k, and it had about $295,000 in his 401k. And he said after last year, with the stuff he's invested in, it shot up to about 415,000.
Mhm.
And so, that's a 40% rate of return. And so he's doing just fine. But then I hear the other side of the coin and the other story, the other side of the road, where it's struggling. It's, unemployment. I don't know. I can't find a good job. And so I really felt like this is a great time to kind of discuss where are we in the market? What is going on? And why are we truly having winners and losers?
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I was going to allow you, Randall, to take the floor as one of the smartest men I know, especially in the state of Georgia. What is the K economy and why is it happening?
Yeah, and I think you gave an excellent overview. It's basically saying that some people are winning and some people losing. They call it a K-shaped economy. If you can use your imagination and draw a K, first thing is a straight line. Think of that as the starting point. And out of that straight line, there's a line going up and then there's a line going down. Think of two escalators going in separate directions, meaning that some people are winning with money. You gave again an example, Dante, of somebody with a portfolio almost doubling within the past 3 or 4 years. And then you have people who aren't winning as much, and those are people who are being laid off. And I think, why is this a big thing? Because it's been going on in America probably for decades, those who have and those who have not. What's accelerating is those who historically have professional degrees, white collar jobs are also feeling this effect of this broken economy because there have been layoffs, they're shrinking because of AI, and there are a lot of people who traditionally were winning and quote unquote did all the right things are no longer winning as they used to be. And that is where people are up in arms and wow, this is just a hoopla.
That's a great point. I'm curious to get your take on it. Do you believe it's access issues or effort issues?
I think what happened was somebody has pulled the rug under folks faster than expected. So we have AI, so things are being done less expensive. Which traditionally, if you were a computer engineer, you could write your ticket to $120,000 a year job, no brainer, no questions asked. But now those jobs are not as needed so much. So I think it's the shift that happened faster than expected. But of course, if individual works harder, he can open himself more opportunities. Now, on the flip side, that computer engineer, should he looked at the landscape and angled himself into an industry that is profitable? Absolutely. But I really think the shift is just accelerating faster and faster, and it's been unexpected. So that's why a lot of people are hurt.
It's a kind of a tricky situation because I know I struggle with trends
Mhm.
and being, seeing things 5 years from now. I think of the first for becoming the United States president in 2020, and he talked about UBI, universal basic income for for Americans. You he talked about how AI AI was going to be taking over people's jobs. See this in the world. And it's almost as if, Andrew Yang was able to see things in the future before they were even here. Now, 6 years later, I look back and be like, man, this guy saw things well
Dante, you're going in and out
beyond,
a little bit. Are you seeing that too?
Yeah, I'm hearing that too. So hopefully he can hear us.
For us normal. Can you guys hear me?
It's in and out. It's staticky.
Okay. How much did you catch of what I said? Nothing?
We caught mostly what you're saying is Andrew Yang entered the idea of universal basic income. And the concept was because of AI, people were no longer going to need to work jobs because AI would be so productive that folks would have to find some other way of earning income in which the government would provide. That's what
Randall's saving the day there, giving the whole example of everything you said in about 10 seconds versus your 2 minutes.
Yes. No, I appreciate it. That's why he's here. But
so he's on
the
trend.
thing with
See?
He's on trend. But my whole point of Andrew Yang bringing him up was, that foresight in 2020 was something that most normal people were like, what the hell are you talking about? It wasn't present. It wasn't something that we saw. But he was able to look into the future with whatever information, whatever access of information that he had to be able to see this is coming and we need to try to get in front of it now. He was trying to be proactive. And our world overall, unfortunately, is very reactive, would you say?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. The concept of we have AI, but then we have, Elon Musk with Tesla making these robots. Well, they are going to do the hard labor for us. They're going to do the things that are inconvenient, the things that we no longer want to do. So the question becomes, now what do we do? How do we provide an income for ourselves, a living for ourselves? And that's a tough question to answer because there's a lot of different theories that we can discuss during this call if you want.
Yes, please, come on.
So the first concept is, well, maybe everybody will just be leisure. Spend time with things that they enjoy, maybe become artists and paint. And then there's another angle, a darker angle, where people will go into despair. They say work gives people meaning. And if you take away that meaning, what does that default to, which is debauchery and drug usage? So there's different ways that this world can shift. And it's up to really our leadership to kind of guide that way. In one way, Andrew Yang was talking about that universal basic income. Instead of let people figuring out for themselves, let's provide them an off ramp as far as what's going to come in the future.
Yeah, what I've seen currently with AI is they've actually been the ones doing the art, right? I mean, you see a lot of the viral moments, whether you're on Facebook or IG with the pictures or the caricatures, everyone represents who they are. They're the ones with, I know Donna.ai, you can create your own songs. Soray, you can create, a scene. So there are different apps that allow you to, let the artistry be done by AI, and you're still the brain of doing the work still, and so we'll see how that currently, how that keeps going as far as the future goes. But I'm curious, so I gave that example of the guy, who's having success, and having good fortune. Do you think there's commonalities or characteristics that we could lean on or saying, hey, this will constitute you? So if we're in this K economy, if that's where we're really doing, how can I make sure I'm on the scale that, the escalator, to your point, that's going up?
What I've been noticing, this is through my client work, talking to the market, it's if you're over, I would say 40 to 45 and up. And like I said, you obtain a professional degree and you've been working that job and you've been able to build up $150,000 to $200,000. That type of architect individual is winning because they already have skin in the game. They've usually bought their home. They have their kids almost out of college, things that in their nature where their actual expenses are slowly going down and their income is still staying relatively the same. Now, those are the folks that are going up. So the folks that are going down, those are people who may have just entered the economy as a recent college grad, have a high load of student loan debt, purchasing a home with a significantly high interest rate. Things and childcare is crazy. I think it's around $2,000 a month. And if you have 2 kids, it's more than your mortgage. So how does somebody survive with, even if you have a professional degree, earning a lot of money with that load of expenses with inflation? So that's where I see the divide. It's really of age and also slightly of occupation.
Dante, just to hit on something, how old, if you don't mind, is that guy that you're describing? The client with the 401k, what's his age?
I think he's out on us.
I think so. You can hear me though, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So, I mean, I'll build on that a little bit, right? Like in talk markets as much as possible. Hopefully he'll wind up jumping back in here. But we haven't had a downward trend in the market. So someone who has a $200,000, $300,000 401k and gets a 20% return 3 years in a row now has a $600,000 portfolio. And they're like, well, what do we do with this? And the thing that I wanted to kind of bring the age thing into question is everybody gets wrapped up into their work 401k, and it's a great tool. The employer contributes. You have $26,000 or $27,000 you can put into it a year tax-free. But it also has tax liabilities down the line. And some of that question is, do you leave all that money in there, or do you maybe take a loan against it to pull some of it out to diversify, whether that's in real estate, whether that's funding IRAs or college fund? Because let's not forget what happened. Pre-COVID, your $600,000 401k at the age of 59 went to $200,000, and you weren't able to retire when you wanted to retire. So great tools, but again, diversification needs to come into play. And I know in the outline that we had here, and it looks like Dante may be back. Can you hear us there, buddy?
Yes.
Okay. The guy that we talked about in your example of 401k, how old was he?
44.
Okay.
Or just turned 45. Just turned 45.
So, I mean, he's in the right position, right? I mean, he could afford to take a little bit of risk, and he could afford to put some on the side for safety and different things like that, right? We talk about the K-shape economy, and for us, we're in commission sales, right? We've been in commission sales our entire life. And the difference that I always see is I've always had a point where I know how much cash I want sitting on a sideline to be able to do other things that I need, and it's that comfort level. And I think that has a lot to do with what we consider the K-shape economy today.
You know, and to piggyback on that, I struggle with that conversation. I really do, and I'll open up to you guys to I need to get more input on that. But a person of his stature, husband and wife, 2 kids, W-2 jobs, both 6-figure income earners, money going into pension and 401k respectively. To some degree, it's like stay the path. Why buck any trend? Why go aggressive to potentially lose what you already have built? Just stay on the path. As long as you, once again, as long as you have some foresight, or at least envision that this path is not going to, the bottom's ever going to fall out per se on you, or that rug gets pulled away from you. I mean, I don't want to be the one that says, yeah, let's add on this extra risk. Whether it's real estate investing or more, stocks, options, whatever, for what are we playing for if you're just staying on that path, especially, if you're, in your 40s.
But is staying on that path worth the risk of having a 20% correction in the marketplace? Because a 20% correction in your 401k at 400,000, that's 80 grand. That don't feel too well, right? That was my kid's education for 2 years. That was, a good payment to my car. to my house, like that then is something that you may not be able to bounce back from. And then sometimes that's where that path, it all makes sense. And especially if someone has a pension behind it, by all means, right? That creates more of a safety blanket in that escalator is only going to go up.
Sure.
I think my perspective is we have to first admit that the average American, the average person is not enterprise enough to be a business owner, is not diligent enough to manage a real estate portfolio. So the average person, a lot of those diversification options are not a wise decision. I think we can all agree, just the average Joe.
Sure.
So to Dante's point, should we just keep the thing going? When I work with clients, because I help them manage their portfolios, I always tell them, hey, your portfolio is $400,000. But I really want you to think of your lower as a range, as your lower band is 320 at all times. So you make decisions based off of 320, not that $400,000 number, because it can always drop. So I think if you change the perspective to say that's not all mine, my identity is not tied up into that $1 million number, it's probably closer to 800,000. Then I think when those dips happen, and yes, it's a large number, but that's part of playing the game. Just like in real estate, the roof needing to be repaired, that's part of the game. As a business owner, maybe I'm short on payroll, not to take a small business loan. That's sometimes part of the game if you don't have the cushion. And most people don't have the cushion.
True.
I think we lost Dante again.
Yeah, always good to have dry powder, basically, is what you're saying, right? I need to throw something in there, right, when the timing's right.
Yeah. And I think the dry powder helps you make good employment decisions. You can take risk within your own career trajectory, right? You can switch jobs more easily because I have those reserves. I'm not switching a job if I'm living paycheck to paycheck. It's just I can't take that 2-week delay when it comes to money.
Yeah. Case in point, I had an older client wanted to buy an investment property for his kid, and he wanted to just do the loan. I'm like, well, why don't you just take the money from the 401k? And the only reason I said take the money from the 401k is now you have a write-off as an investment property, and he was approaching retirement, and he had $1 million in his 401k. I'm like, well, you need a tax write-off because you're going to be pulling money out of the 401k. So again, just different ways of kind of tying everything together.
But that is all contingent upon that client is diligent enough to manage a property.
Right.
Because there is a level of ownership, a level of responsibility when you become a landlord.
Yeah, but he was being a landlord to his kid.
Okay, so his kids was.
I mean, it was all staying within the family. He was buying a house for his kid. He wanted to buy a house for him, go on the loan. So why do you want to do that? Just do it as an investment.
Yeah.
It's funny that we the book that I'm thinking of is The Power of Zero. I don't have the name of the author, but The Power of Zero is a book that when we're talking about this conversation, because we're actually leading right into assets versus wages, and really what I'm hearing we're all saying is we're talking about assets and what to do with the assets. And I have a stat here that said that assets have been the stock market has produced long-term average annual returns of 8 to 10%, while wages have grown closer to 2 to 3%. So I guess what I would say to that is if you don't own assets, the market growth is just a headline, and it's not the paycheck. You're not participating in the game. At the end of the day, going back to my example, he's in the game. He sees the fruits of a 40% gain, where some people are still at the position of they don't even have a 401k.
Right.
They don't even set it up. They're just, they're hoarders of money, and they want to keep it in their bank account at 0% interest or a CD. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, you're not even playing the game well. So the acknowledgement of assets and how important they are, obviously it starts with wages, having a good job, something that you care about. And we speak of the younger youth, the Gen Zs, the millennials. It seems like they have taken an approach that, they want to do something meaningful. They're trying to find jobs that have meaning. They're not just going to take an aimless job because it pays well per se. They have some social look added. Now that might sound, for me and Vince, very foreign. Like, what do you
What?
mean?
What are you talking about?
Just take the job. But there is a reality that, they have this deeper meaning. They want to feel like they're serving a purpose. Where, Gen Xers, baby boomers, we just took the job, whatever was available. I mean, I didn't grow up saying I want to be a loan officer. I didn't grow up saying, yeah, I want to help people, buy homes. That wasn't what my yearning was. But it was a job at the time. And while I was trying to become a financial advisor, waiting on American Express to call me, and they didn't call me back, and I already had a gig, and I was like, well, I got a job. Sorry. But yeah, so I think it is important to touch on, why assets are so important and how they are growing faster. So if you could touch on that, I think that would be great for the audience.
Yeah, I think so. When I was young, and I talked to my dad about his employment journey, he used to get 10% raises, 15% raises. Smaller company, they got stock option. He wasn't like the chief executive guy. He was just a regular, senior management level individual. And that is just not happening. Companies are growing equally as fast, but they're not giving their employees the share of the profits. Maybe the VP, senior executive, CEO are receiving that big pay packages, but rank and file employees are not going to receive that wage increase just because that is the way we have been socialized to accept how business runs. Agree or not agree. And I think the kids, the younger generation, the millennials, XY, all those things, they're watching that and observing like, that is not fair. That is not equitable. And that's not what they want to do. They also saw their parents work jobs that they didn't like. And we thought, okay, well, yeah, they came home upset for an hour and then they transform into a great parent. No, you carried that job home. You carried that job on the weekend. You carried that job on how you parented and how you treated the community. There was no complete separation. And the younger generation observed that and said, hey, that's not right, or that's not something that I'm going to sacrifice just because I want to earn a paycheck. That resulted in a lot of focusing on meaning and purpose and less focus on what I feel like, which is value creation. And that's where I feel like the younger generation is meaning. They're not focusing on creating value, which is causing them to actually be left behind.
What do you think, Vince?
I mean, I'm a little biased here, right? Because my source of being able to have an income stopped, right? So assets became more important, right? So I can look at this and say, the two different ways, but, there is no assets without income, right? Like you have to have a job in order to get the assets, right? It's what you do with it early, how you use it, how you plan to use it, and when you start to really look at the financial picture of doing that. Like your guy sitting at 45 with a $400,000 401k, he started at the right time, right?
Yes,
I mean, let's just look at the facts, right? I mean, and time value of money has a way of showing performance. The older you get and the more you stayed consistent with what you did in your 20s and you started to add to it in your 30s, now it adds up, right? Now, and that's the big difference. I mean, there's no other way of planning, right? I mean, you had a huge economic debacle with COVID that turned into a great economic skyrocket, right? By the money that was placed into the economy, and it continues to go up. It doesn't go we don't go down. So everyone's in this pattern that it's always going to go up.
And so it is, what I hear from you is always hedge your bets, and I love that, and diversify, an asset allocation and all that good stuff. I think that's important to note that eventually there will be a correction, and you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket per se. And so having assets, that can provide some stability, i.e., real estate might be a good idea. Some of the separation has occurred obviously with the first-time home buyer. For most of us, it all started with that home that appreciated, that we were either able to extract money from a refinance level or sell it, and we made some proceeds off of that. The same example, had a house, was able to sell it, use that to piggyback onto a newer house. So that is an excellent point. And now we have the first-time home buyer, average age is 40 years old. When I got in the game, over 24 years ago, we were talking about 26, 27-year-old.
Yep.
So we've seen the, stagnation and the retardation of the age of a first-time home buyer, which, pushes further and further down the lane of you actually having the ability to obtain an asset that can help you make that next movement. So it is a situation that, you're going to have to get a good job, right? We know that you're going to have to establish yourself or find something that you like. I just feel like we're moving. If the jobs are not just ample and the opportunities are not there where you can really make some money, the self-employment world will have to, be there for you. And I think, on the social media front, I think that might be something that, they're going to have to really hone on the younger generation. And I think some already have. I have this vision, and I'm just going to see what you guys think, where, we're all just going to have these channels. Every individual will just have a channel, and you just sell different widgets, through your channel and you have these followers that you've accumulated over your time in life. Maybe the channel starts sooner. Maybe you start like Mr. Beast, right? When you're 11 years old, and that just becomes the norm for every 11-year-old kid to have a channel, accumulate friends, accumulate acquaintances, and then say, hey, today I just got my real estate license. If you need to buy, help me. And that helps. Hey, today I got, I just invested into, beef jerky, come, who anybody wants some, use the QR code. I just feel like we're starting to merge. Two worlds are starting to merge together. And we'll see that more and more if we don't create enough job opportunities.
But that's the thing, right? These are the job opportunities today. I mean, that's what kids are doing. They're creating their own channels. They're getting sponsors and everything behind it, right? They're creating that environment already.
And I also, my warning to that is, I think it's like, professional athletics. Like there is a loud minority, as they say, meaning that there are going to be a few people making gangbusters while there's a whole swath of people barely getting by. And that is my worry of the social media influencer market is, yes, there are going to be some who make it and God bless them, but there's going to be a lot of people who try and burn out and crash because it's not just talent and skill. There is a lot of gamesmanship similar to any business. When you have a personal brand, you are a business. So you have to run it like a business. And like I said, the average person just is not there and capable. Similar to the average person has a challenge building wealth. That's why a lot of people's wealth is tied up in their home. So this isn't just, either one or the other. It's just these things are hard. And we're asking of a lot of people to do certain shifts.
What were you going to say, Vince?
Well, I cut you off when you were doing that. So, long story short, right? We only hear about the winners. You don't hear about the losers, right? And there's people that have losses. You just don't hear about it, right? Because it's not popular, right? I'm not going on social media telling you, hey, I lost 10 grand in the stock market last week, right? Or 100 grand or whatever, right? We're not having that conversation, right? We're only talking about the good side, right? Because that's all you want people to know about, right? So, I mean, that's one piece on it. I mean, obviously, we've done many shows with Randall here. I said this before. Till you have $100,000 saved up, you really don't have enough money to really kind of do the things you need to do from an investment standpoint and different things. And the other piece is housing is expensive. If the rate of homes continue to appreciate at the rate they're going to be, that age of the first-time home buyers only become higher and higher, okay? And that wealth that we saw with home ownership when the first-time home buyer was 28 is unachievable because the math behind it doesn't work. Now, granted, I'm not getting away from this. There's a sign that says Epic Mortgage. That's what we do. We do mortgages first, right? But it goes back to the points that we've said in previous shows. Got to take the money out of the home and give it to the kids to go buy their home, meaning parents, meaning relatives, inheritances. You have to put that money to work. Same principle if we've beaten the drum. Take the money out of the walls.
Yeah, I love it.
Could also mean take the money out of the 401k.
Yeah, it's you touched on sports, and I know we've had this before. I was trying to see if I could find it real fast.
Oh yeah, Bears are going to the Super Bowl next year.
You like that? History repeats itself. That's what we need.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a good staff for this, but there's a faction of people obviously with the whole NIL in the college sports, and so now we're going to have this faction of people. Generally, they're going to be in basketball and the football realm. They're going to receive anywhere from, let's just call it $30,000 to potentially $1 million, right? And they're going to receive that through the course of their time playing. And not all of them are going to make it professionally. Sadly but true, they're not going to make it. They're not going to be good enough. And just the thought pattern of those people that I just made, let's just call it $500,000 playing college sports.
Mhm.
And now I'm not good enough to play. And now I have to go get a job, whether it's Enterprise, whether it's at Rocket, UWM, you name it. I get a job and they want to start me off with an entry-level position of $60,000. I mean, that's going to be tough sledding mentally, the mind shift for those people that have made some considerable coin in very little time, I won't say little expectation, but certainly not a Monday through Friday, 9 to 9 type of job.
Yep.
This is why I feel like the some will be like, I'm not work for 60 grand. And that's where I think these platforms, he's talking about writing a book right now, the individual impact.
You're going in and out again, Dante.
Yeah.
We're
We're going to cut him off, Randall. Here, he comes back right there. You back?
Creating your own empire is now a thing. It's a real thing. You never.
Just to throw a little joke, Dante played collegiate basketball. He did not play during the era of the NIL, so he did not get that kind of money. So there is some personal responses here for those of you that can't hear it. At least you can tell that he's laughing so he can hear my little joke to it.
That's awesome. That is, a good thing that this is being recorded so then I can actually listen and hear your guys' responses on stuff. I'm having some internet issues, so I'm like, my goodness. But yeah, no, I didn't catch other than that joke. I did not catch anything. But what were you guys saying? Anything that sparked an interest on that?
We were basically trying to listen to what you were saying. I mean, I got the Enterprise guy, the NIL guy, 500,000 going to work at Enterprise for 60. Not going to be happy with the 9 to 5, but you play 9 to 5 in the basketball court every day for practice. So the discipline's there. It's just the financial reward's not the same, right? Let's just put it that way.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, so and that's my whole point, that I just feel like this fusion is going to have to take place. These worlds are going to have to collide because they have built up this network, and this network is what they're going to rely on to and that's really been that way probably the last 50, 60 years. It's always been about networks. Yeah. And you don't want to burn bridges. And, when you go to a big establishment like Indiana, won the national title for football, and you see that huge alumni base, a lot of people will get hired on by those alumni. Oh, you went to Indiana? You're hired. Oh, you went to Notre Dame? You're hired. Oh, you went to the U? You're hired. So, the networks that you're associated with are going to speak huge dividends on separating this K economy. What escalator are you on? Are you on the one on the down or up? Is going to be based on your network that you have. Yeah,
but college kids don't even have to go to class anymore to get a degree. So you're not building a network. You're sitting in a classroom on a computer. Don't even get me started on that one.
I think there's a little bit of the haves and the have-nots. I think those prestigious private universities highly encourage commingling of students coming together, building up that network with alumni base. But there is a larger swath of, like you said, it's all online classes, virtual PowerPoints. You, like I say, you don't even have to show up; just take the test, and that's a haves and have-not thing.
Definitely. Let's take a quick time out on housekeeping notes. We have the world's, oh no, not the world's, but one of the greatest financial minds in Georgia. Where do they reach you, Randall? How do they get in contact with you for more information?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. So I work with 3 different segments. The first one's going to be pre-retirees, those about 10 years away from retirement, self-employed individuals and practice owners. Think about therapists and attorneys. If you want to learn more about me, the best way is to go to my website, www.deasilwm.com. That's www.deasilwm.com. And I'm on social media. So look up my name, Randall Avery, and you should be able to find my content, what I believe and what I speak on, if you want to learn more about me.
Vince?
Well, email for me, Vince at Epic. Hold on, it's been a while. Let me do that. Vince at epic.mortgage. And my cell phone is 708-359-8578. And guys, pay attention. Randall has some letters that are behind that name that are a little difficult to get, and they take some time. So it's not just about the planning part. The analyst is very, very hard to do. So
thank you.
That's awesome. This episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, investing, or refinancing, call Epic today, 708-905-5300, 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Now, after the show is over, we'd love for people on Facebook, people on LinkedIn to go to our YouTube channel, Epic Spotlight, and check out our most recent podcast with Talmar Anderson. Are you really a CEO or just an exhausted business owner wearing 15 hats? In this episode with CEO Catalyst Talmar Anderson, she exposes why most entrepreneurs are stuck in the weeds and how to build a team that lets you lead instead of constantly putting out fires. So this was a great episode. She's a business coach. So if you ever were wondering, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to do better? How do I not have to juggle so many balls in the air, per se? Definitely check out Talmar Anderson, the most recent Epic Spotlight podcast. I had a nice conversation with her. Also, too, we have preferred listings when we are working with our mortgage clients. They're always asking, Dante, do you have any things available, whether you're trying to buy a primary home or an investment property? Go to the website, www.danteroyster.com. You can check out our preferred list. We just picked up 2 new properties today. So, definitely some good ones. We have one recently just sold in Humboldt, Texas. So we're always happy to help people out. Always looking to, work with realtors. If you have some listings that you need some more attention on, definitely reach out to us and we'll try to get that all situated. Now we do have some questions, so let's answer some questions. We got one right here. Is the middle class shrinking because of access or policy? What do you say, Randall?
I think the middle. So first of all, let's acknowledge the middle class is shrinking. That's because inflation is pricing people down to lower class. Income disparities are pricing people down to lower class, and there are some people that are moving up, but there's not as many that are moving down. So let's acknowledge first that the middle class is shrinking. So what is the process? I think it's both. I'm going to pick on somebody today, and I'm going to pick on policy. I believe the antitrust, our execution, our enforcement of antitrust laws has been lacking in the United States. There's no reason that we should have multi-billion-dollar companies acquiring multi-billion-dollar companies. That reduces competition, that causes that haves and have-nots. I started this call with describing, my dad getting those 15, 20% raises. Those don't happen in mega large companies. They only happen in smaller companies where the employees can participate in the upside. So I'm going to pick on policy. I think access and policy is important, but policy and the fact of limiting these companies getting so large is actually, I believe, stifling innovation and the access to the economic benefits of the U.S. economy.
Policy, technology, and capital concentration were my three things I wrote down as the reason why this is happening. I really believe the wage differences are huge because wages are not keeping up with inflation. I believe that I think the policies overall, there's some good ideas, but I don't know how you implement. A lot of, there's several good ideas out there, but implementation has been a major issue. And, I think there's just a disparity amongst metro areas and rural areas, and that has created a major divide because we should all be on the same page. I mean, I understand the mindset that there's multiple ways to skin a cat, right? But it seems to me that there should be a little bit more of a clarity of the straight line of how can we get there, because I would imagine most of us all want to move forward, but I know there's distractions, there's missteps, there's mistake, life be lifing, but I still feel like we're missing the boat on just simplicity and clarity. And and that's really the reason why I wanted you on today and talk about this, because I just think it's so important of like, what are we missing here? Why? I mean, sometimes the boring is the best way to go. We've been basically talking about the one example I gave to start this, but if a guy is making 40% rate of return, that means it was a win in the marketplace. Now you could have been I think I might have been 12%. If I look at my stuff, it might have been 17 for others, might have been 30% for others. So there was a win that was made last year. If you were in the marketplace, with your assets, did you win? And we have to have a self-evaluation. If you did not win, then what are you doing? Zero is a loss to some degree, especially when you can see gains of 40%. Because when he told me this, I mean, my initial thing, like, damn, what is he investing in? I want to see that portfolio. He must be outside the S&P 500. That's what I was in. That's initially what came to my mind. Like, damn.
His 401k was sitting in cash at the time of the tariff announcements in April, and then everything got moved into the market, right? And I'm not promoting trading on a 401k, sure, right? But
sure,
that's a hell of a return on a 401k in a given year.
Yeah, I was like, man. But it's just one of those things where I just feel like we complicate so much. Human beings are so gray, yeah, and sometimes things can be just black and white. It is simplistic to do you have assets in your portfolio? If you don't, then we have to get that resolved. It just basic math right there. I mean, because the game's getting played by others, and I just I hate seeing people left out.
Yeah, but let's build on a little bit of the antitrust thing is really important that was brought up earlier here. And let's just take it to our industry. Rocket Redfin merger.
Sure.
Right? This consolidation between that company, Rocket's now servicing 20%, 25% of the mortgages that are being serviced out in the marketplace. Now they own a real estate company. So when that person goes to sell their home, there's already a mortgage behind it. When that person goes to list, or looks to buy, they're already going to Rocket. Now, granted, there's also some talk of there's lawsuits against some of this already, but sure, goes to the point that we haven't been paying attention to these rules.
What about Rocket and Mr. Cooper?
Well, that's the same. Yeah, I mean, that's where their servicing pool comes into, right? Like I said, they're owning 25% of the mortgages that are out there because they bought Mr. Cooper.
Correct.
And then they turned around and consumed Redfin, right? So now when someone from Mr. Cooper goes to Rocket and says, hey, I need to, refi, well, we're out of the game, right? Because
correct,
they're right there, right? So these are things that really need to be watched. And obviously, we're here to promote individualism, private businesses. That's why we do these shows, and that's why we're different than the competition that are out there. But the antitrust stuff really needs to.
The only hard part is when inflation increases and the cost gets more expensive, the smaller businesses and the smaller companies can't play the game. to the same quality,
Sure.
right? They can't afford the wages, they can't afford the amount of employees. And so once you start getting the government hand to say, hey, give me an assist so I can stay in the game, then you get the frown on the other side saying, hey, that's not, I don't want our money being allocated to help prop up these smaller companies to stay in the game.
Well, and I mean, obviously, too, to focus a little more of a very detailed point to our industry, we're not going to get into that today,
Sure.
but no longer can do trigger leads.
Correct.
Right? Like, I mean, hey, if someone pulled their credit and I would be able to be advertising to them, whether that's a phone call, a mailer, or whatever. Now, we can't do that as the small individual, but the Bank of America, Chase, or Rocket, who has all that information already in their portfolio, can. That's a problem.
That is. Are we witnessing a permanent economic split?
Yes. Fast answer.
Yeah, fast answer is yes. The people who have resources and power are not going to let it go. It's hard to let it go, and people don't have a big enough heart to worry about those without. So the split has been permanent from the past, and it will continue to be permanent. It's just going to be accelerated.
This is straight tangent, but and I'm not going to belabor this too strongly, but morals and ethic values, when you speak of humanitarian, are in question in today's events. I don't have to go into what I'm speaking of, but you can probably figure it out. And they talked about the concept of being courage and having, just being, just having the gumption to say it's not okay, to buck the trend. And kind of the little bit of the hypocritical side of things, of just the overall concept of networking. We're almost scared to burn bridges because we understand the networks are what, basically allow us to grow. This opens this door, this opens that door. But if someone is morally wrong or ethically wrong, do we have the, courage within to say, hey, this doesn't comply with my moral and ethical compass, and I'm okay with this bridge burning down and closing. This is, we're kind of at a peril for this. But let me ask you the question, how she's phrasing it. So are we going to stay in a K economy? Is that basically where we're trending? This is just where we are in today's society?
Yeah, I think so first of all, it's always been a K economy. You think about the Rothschilds, the elite. There's always been the haves and have-nots. I just think that because of you guys know this in the mortgage industry, lending and banking, acceleration, money is moving significantly faster. So these people who have money are going to continue to grow, accelerate. Those who don't are going to continue to decrease. So I do believe the K-shaped economy is permanent, as it always been. It's just going to look ugly. I believe
the spread of wealth is not going to be the pace of the wealth creation is not going to be able to be slowed down.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if the 40% rate of return is out there, and someone obviously attained it at a 295 to 415 level, well, just the guy that had 10 million, the guy that had 50 million, 100 million, so to your point, it just gets bigger.
Right. Same thing with the inflation and the cost of goods, right? We're never going back down. Right. Because right. Okay. Never is a bad word, but if the eggs went down 10 cents, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Right. Prices have increased. They're going to stay at the levels they're at. And that's just what it is.
Because I don't know about you guys in Atlanta, our mortgage market here, they can't talk to anybody who can't afford a $3,000 a month plus mortgage. So think of the individuals that we are having to talk to and solicit to and market to, and those are the only people who are receiving services. And that goes across financial services, it goes across consulting. So it haves and have-nots. It's going to accelerate.
If you get that divide, that true divide, and it's funny because the only time you talk to the have-nots is for political votes. That's the only time. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I need you and I'm going to try to help you. And it's like, I don't know if the math is even probable that you can help.
No.
So it's just pandering.
Well, and just to kind of touch a little bit of a joking thing, Atlanta has a lot of champagne closings because it has a strong medical district, right? And this is a little bit of a joke, but in reality, though, the prices of downtown Atlanta have shot up tremendously in the last couple of years to a pace that no one can keep up with, regardless of what industry you're in or what you do, right? And there's many markets like that, not just Atlanta, right?
Yeah, I took a tour in Chicago, and they told me to have these type of apartments, dwellings with downtown, you have to inherit money. It is impossible to build that wealth in one generation, and that's where these major cities are going.
Yeah, it's the Midwest has still intrigued a lot of investors because of the affordability that's still left in some of our, south suburbs in particular. Certain areas that are just like, oh my God, with the type of money we have here, we can invest in 3, 4 homes, and so we see some of those spikes, down in Georgia, down in Florida, California, etc. And so it's just one of those situations where it's kind of a sad look at, it's like, I didn't mean this to be sad and depressing. I want to give some uplift. And so hopefully these questions will bring us back to, how can we improve our situation? But it is a reality that we're all dealing with. And it's like, you kind of, we're going to have to figure out some things, and even like when you guys talk about food, I've been watching all these like little chefs that have been even as little as a Big Mac, where the guy's like, hey, Big Macs are $6.49, but for $4.50, you can make your own Big Mac. This is how you do it. And it tastes better too. You know what I mean? Just little things like that, where it's like, you know what, maybe I should start using that stove in my kitchen a little bit more.
You're making me hungry. When I was a kid, there used to be coupons that would come in the mail for Burger King. Buy 5 Whoppers, $5. You used to get a Whopper, right? And we wait for those coupons to come through as a little kid and then rush over to the store. Can't do that no more, right? They don't sell those coupons no more. It is what it is. I went and grabbed 2 Whoppers one day. It was like $14. I'm like, what? For 2 Whoppers, $14? You're out of your mind.
Man, good thing I don't eat that. All right, here we go. What role does inflation play in widening this divide?
Yeah. For me, it's. I mean, what happens is people have to do trade-offs now. Do I go on vacation, or do I upgrade my home? Or do the renovation to my home? Do I buy the milk, or do I go out to eat? Do I celebrate? So what's happening is people are going through these trade-offs. And these trade-offs are going to slowly accelerate to the point where you can only do certain things, and you're going to be relegated to, unfortunately, a certain area, a certain population with a certain activity. So remember, we talked about networking and meeting people. Well, people are going to be hanging out here who don't have it, and people are going to be hanging out here who do have it, and they're just going to continue that separation and divide. So that's what inflation causes. The wealthy, they worry about inflation because it erodes their wealth. So, but I don't think with the instruments at their disposal, I don't think they're too worried about that.
I think of the movie Demolition Man. You guys seen that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Wesley Snipes? And basically they have the separation with the K economy. The have-nots are the ones living in the sewers. They're living in the sewer system, and doing stuff where the people up top that have the money and have the success or whatever are above ground. So it's very fascinating what we're doing. How much of this divide is structural versus behavioral?
That's tough. I think they're one and the same. I think the behavioral aspect creates the laws. The behavioral aspect enforces laws. We talked about antitrust. And it all goes down to greed. People wanting more power, more wealth, and to hold it and control it. And as long as that behavioral element of greed and holding on to that, they're going to create structures to protect themselves. It's natural. Like if I have a house, I may want a fence to keep out stray dogs outside. So that's all that's happening. It's self-preservation. Without the concept of thinking about what's important for your greater mankind.
You think about the politicians, and I always bring this example up. It's like the common folk like ourselves. We're talking about a choice to have retirement. We want to accumulate enough assets to have this retirement, so we have to choose, a choice to spend more time with family, go on more trips and stuff, or just simply just sit at home and watch the TV. But you have these politicians that want to work at 80, 79, 75 years old, because they're the ones writing the laws for their kids that, they're doing it for the generations that are going to come from behind them. And so it's like, I thought we were supposed to sit down and relax while they're steadily at work, and insider trading is real and stuff like this is occurring. You know what I mean? And it's like you're seeing a constituent look at these politicians that come in with $140,000-$180,000 salary, and they walk away with net worth of $100 million. And it's like, wait, how did that happen? Where's my escalator? How do I get on that escalator? My goodness. So it is fascinating, to say the least. Can entrepreneurship still level the playing field?
I think so. I think micro businesses can have the benefit of just maneuvering around certain current market conditions. You just have to understand where the value is for people as far as what they're willing to pay for, and be able to deliver it in a personalized way. People still want that personalized touch. There is a place where the big boys, the Amazons and the Walmart, but there is a place where mom and pop, where somebody wants to be seen and understood. And I think as long as small businesses can sit in that place, I think they can still play the game.
And that's what I believe too, Vince, in our space, I believe, giving that individual service, helping that person out, getting them through the most important, part of their life, the decision-making of buying a house, which is probably going to end up being the most expensive thing that they purchase. I think there's still a play for the independent mortgage professional.
I wouldn't have it any other way, right? I wouldn't work for a big bank.
Exactly.
It just doesn't work, right? I mean, I always look at it's my clients, my rule. It's my job to make sure I stay in front of them, and that's just what it is, right? I mean, our industry is the example of entrepreneurship. I mean, there's no other way around it, right? I mean, you need to have your license sponsored by someone, but other than that, it's your business.
It is, and the only thing that has really changed, I go back 24 years to now, which I find fascinating. And it's something that just hit me was just the forms of communication. I've been really belaboring that over this year, just over the last 2 months, of just how do we communicate with our clients, our customers, and how do we stay in front of them? If you go 24 years ago, there was probably only 3 ways that you did it. And now you look at it as of today, it's 6 ways to communicate with people. And so having that understanding, having that ability, it really has transformed some of the stuff that I'm doing. But it's just, it can be daunting, but it's just what's necessary to make sure that they know, because they don't always, they figure, oh, you might be too busy for me, or out of sight, out of mind, they forget. And so that constant reminder of like, hey, I am the best option for you is just so relevant nowadays.
Yeah. And let's just put this out there. All these forms of communication are great. Everything's evolved in the last 20 years. We can say that now because we were there 20 years ago, right? I met you back 15 years ago. All of that being said, there's one thing that hasn't changed. The cell phone still needs to have a ring so you can have an actual conversation. So to the realtors out there, who's ever out there, you don't have clients if you don't have conversations. The internet and all this stuff is great. It brings presence, it brings awareness, but we still have to pick up the phone and talk to each other.
Yeah.
No doubt. What industries offer the best chance to build ownership?
Wow.
That's a tough one. Pretty vague on that one.
Big time vague on that.
The one you're passionate about.
I think service-based businesses, because they have a low cost of capital. Service-based business could include those who need a professional licensors like we have. Service-based business could be a personal chef or a cook. Service-based business, I think, has the lowest barrier of entry because, the highest expense is your time in that case. Now, it's the hardest business to scale, when you talk about having multiple employees and going that nature. But if you want to have something that you own, something that you can have your name on it without, let's say, having a couple $100,000 saved up or going to get a loan, I think a professional service-based business is a good option.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to say that one. What habits separate these gaining momentum from those stuck?
For me, it's all about finding value. A lot of people stop finding value. They stop when they're in their job. They're like, hey, my performance review is good, my employer's happy, but am I adding value within my position? Meaning, if they took me out, would there be a significant loss? So I would say those that know how to add value to their circumstances, whether it's adding value to their clients, adding value to your employers, will always be able to continue momentum, because adding value to employers a lot of times means talking to people outside of your company to get brand new ideas and fresh ideas. So what happens is you become known in your community, you can be known in your market, and that way you're always able to be, I tell young people all the time, make sure that you're employable is your number one job. They say politicians, your number one job is to get reelected. Well, as an employee or even a service-based provider, it's always be employable. Always show something that makes somebody want you. And I think a lot of people fall back on, I have a degree, I have this title, and that's not good enough anymore, because that is going to shift rapidly over the next couple of years.
Employable reminds me of like your background. Like have you been arrested? Have you been sued? All those things. So employable. I think of coachable.
Yeah.
Are you someone that I can mold you into what I need? Hey, this company needs you this way. And then, are you available? Right? Or are you always sickly? Oh, is always sick? Doesn't go to work? You have to be available, and obviously that is more of a sports etiquette that it comes to my head, but being availability is critical. Like, are you available? Can I rely on you 5 days a week, 6 days a week to show up, always be there? And that's gonna when it gets competitive, because we're all it's just like a house, right? When you have the nicest house, you're gonna have a multiple bid situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a great job, you have tons of candidates all vying for this position. And how does someone separate themselves from the next person? These are the things that you'll have to convey in an interview process of being coachable, being available, and being adaptable, and to your point, being employable. So it is something that needs to be talked about. One thing on this question, I think is also important. Habits to gain momentum. Even when you're getting a job, and all of us are self-employed, so jobs are relevant, but it's always, don't lose focus on your individual goals and what this game of life is. So obviously, yes, to your point, Vince, we do have to have a job so we can garner assets. You can't get assets without having working capital. But don't lose sight on what the overall mission is. This job is supposed to take care of your lifestyle, and hopefully a part of your lifestyle is that planning of accumulating so you can go get assets underneath your realm. I think that's so important. Sometimes we get so focused, we drink the Kool-Aid of so many of these companies, and we're not taking care of ourselves. And then when that rug does get taken from us, where we were unexpected, we have really nothing to show for it, because we were all into this job. So you do always have to put a little bit on that sidelines of building something on the side, just in case you could tinker with it, play with it, just in case you have to, press that red button.
And to kind of Vince's point, I tell kids all this, young folks, college professionals, I say, the key word in corporation is cooperation. Do they like you? People always say, oh, I'm qualified. Look at my background. Look at all my skills. Do they like you? Do they want to be around you? Do they want to smile and have fun? Do people want to do business, people they know, like, and trust? Like is an important factor. Mm-hmm. So work on your ability to be likable, because I think that's an element that is missed when people are thinking about finding a job and finding the good jobs, because anybody can get a lousy job, but finding a good job where you're valued and they value you, guess what? Talented employers want talented people who also are likable. Just throwing that out there.
If
All
you
right,
don't take anything from this, take that. People do business with who they know, like, and trust. And nothing else to be said.
We got 3 more questions and we're out of here. Right here, great show. Why does it feel like hard work alone isn't enough anymore?
My wife hates when I say this. I say she says something and all of a sudden it goes, the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions. So just because you're grinding, just because your heart's in the right place, I always say, was there any fruit from that labor? Right. So just because I'm grinding, working, certification, all those great things, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. There are things in life that you have to do to win. That's being enterprising, that is having people that like you, that is doing favors for folks, that's sacrificing and volunteering. Those are the elements. So it's not just hard work. Sometimes it's that enterprising element. And that goes whether if you're an entrepreneur or an employee.
Well said. Is ownership truly the biggest predictor of financial freedom today?
Yeah. I think if you're going to keep pace with this economy, you are going to own assets. We talked about the 401k. We talked about real estate. You eventually have to turn what we call in finance your human capital, your ability to make money, into some type of assets, because at some time you're going to no longer want to work. And everybody on this call is saying, yeah, I'll work forever. I'll work till I'm 70. Trust me, I work with retirees. There's something that shifts, starts around 55 years old, and they no longer have that drive to do that thing anymore. So building up those assets are a great predictor of future wealth.
55? Might as well say 45. Man. 55.
And it's a lot about health too. You know, that check engine light comes on around that age. And yeah, you get to a ride with the check engine light, which we've all done before. But it's a thing. I mean, Father Time's undefeated.
Undefeated. All right. And what's the first strategic move someone should make today? That's a good way to finish it. Thanks, Kenneth, for that. What's the first strategic move someone should make today? They recognize they're in the K economy. Uh-oh. What do I need to do today?
I would strongly focus on relationships. That may sound counterintuitive, but really find good relationships with people who have the same values that align with where you want to go. So that'd be the first thing I do. And the second thing is, once you find that, make sure you are learning and continue to grow in a way that adds value to whatever you're trying to do. Just always try to focus on value. And I think you won't get lost doing that.
What do you say, Vince?
Pick which escalator and make the change in order to be on the one that only goes up.
Love it. Love it. Read books. Let's start off with reading books. The Power of Zero. Check out that book.
You didn't take the book plug?
You're going to serve it up for me. You're going to say, hey, read The Ultimate Mortgage Guide. It's available on Amazon.
Come on. I know this is my first show of the year, but you're out of practice, man. That was
I'm working on my second book, Vince. I
know there's another edition coming out. I know 2's in the works because we already discussed that. But
yeah, number 2's in the works. I'm on chapter 8, man. So I'm working my way there. So yeah, almost there. So no, I really appreciate you guys. Great videos, super insightful and timely. Yeah, thanks for listening. We really appreciate that. I thought it was a great show, guys. I really did. Really appreciate the insight. It was just something that kind of spur of the moment, kind of feeling the haves and have-nots. And you guys really, really knocked it out of the park. And I look forward to watching this again since I missed some of it and get the answers that you guys did. But thanks for coming on the show. And Randall, where can they reach you one more time?
Yeah, so my name's Randall Avery, certified financial planner. If you want to learn more about what I do, how I help people, go to my website. It's going to be www.deasilwm.com. That's deasilwm.com. I'm also on social media. Just look up my name, Randall Avery, and I should pop up. And there I share a lot of things specifically around how to build wealth. And also, if you're going to step out on your own, what are some business tactics you could do to actually improve your business? So it's a lot of fun content. So hopefully you guys can tap in.
Yeah, definitely. He is one of the greatest financial minds in Georgia. Really appreciate him every time he's on the show. He always brings us great insight. So I appreciate that. Vince, where can they reach you?
You guys can always reach me on my cell, 708-359-8578, or my Epic email, vince@epic.mortgage. Dante, appreciate being here. Randall, thanks again. First show of the year for me. I will be back next Monday. I'm going to wrap and get out of here a little early because it's 60 degrees outside here in Chicago, and it's time to go get some sun.
It is time to get some sun. I agree. It's President's Day, and so banks are closed and making it a little light day today. We'll be back on Wednesday. I will be with Jess Ford on Wednesday, and then we have a special show on Friday with Deshonda Mock. So that will be good. So make sure you check both of those out. And thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your President's Day.
Take care, guys.
See you guys.